This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to Thursday Night Football Overtime. Dallas Cowboys, America's team, taking on the Minnesota Vikings in a big matchup for both teams. For the Dallas Cowboys, it's funny. They're on a 10-game winning streak coming into this game, but a loss here coupled with the Giants' win would make Sunday night's game in Week 14 for the lead in the division in the NFC East. So a win here by the Cowboys keeps some distance between them and the G-Men, who they'll see for the second time next week on Sunday Night Football. For the Vikings, it's really simple. You got to win down the stretch to make it to the postseason. The NFC North division isn't out of reach, but because of the season sweep to the Detroit Lions, you need to win games. And looking at the schedule, it's setting up favorably for the Minnesota Vikings. Jacksonville, another contest with Chicago. There's some winnable games on the schedule, but this is a big one. You get this one, and you may be able to run the table down the stretch to make the postseason, albeit, wild card. Doesn't matter. You just want to get in. So this is a big one to get you to 7-5. If you can get the victory, you lose this game and you drop to 6-6, and it gets a little tighter for you and a little tougher to make the postseason if you're the Minnesota Viking. The margin of error shrinks to almost zero for you down the stretch. So big game for both teams involved. We'll break this thing down here quickly. Before we do, make sure that you subscribe to the Louie Tee Network if you haven't already done so on YouTube. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by subscribing to the Louie Tee Network. Also, I'm on Twitter at In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. And I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. All of my social media platforms right there in the box right next to me. So let's jump into this breakdown. No likes, dislikes, banana and tailpipe. I was all over the place tonight. I was out. I was about. But I watched every single second of this game. So let's break this thing down. And we'll start with the Cowboys in this game and the things that I saw from them. This was a sloppy game by the Cowboys. You knew they were due for one of these types of performances. But the beauty of what the Cowboys were able to do tonight is they still won. For as sloppy as they played, all the penalties, all the mistakes, the 2 turnovers, all the things that have been uncharacteristic of the Cowboys this season, they still won. And that's a mark of a good football team. Despite it being ugly and mucked up by the Cowboys in this game, they found a way to get it done. And that's what you see from teams when they're on such a winning streak like the Cowboys are now at 11 games. They find ways, just like the Panthers did a season ago. They found and created new ways to win each and every single week. When they're not dominating an opponent, when a team hangs tough and close with them, they find a way to pull it out. They did it again tonight. That no call at the end of the game was egregious. And before I jump into this thing deeply, if my man Nick is out there, Nick at Night, showtime, I feel for you, man, because this is the second week in a row you've had to endure some poor calls against your team late in ball games. Your Michigan Wolverines went down with a poor call at the end of that Ohio State-Michigan game. And now the no call on Bradford on the hit to the helmet. Look, it's tough. Don't know if they would have converted anyway. Doesn't matter. Cowboys get the win. Zeke Elliott with a big run late, but they pretty much held him in check. Dak Prescott, again, using his legs like we saw him do on Thanksgiving versus the Redskins to help his team. That one drive that the Cowboys had early in the game, their only score of the first half with the deep ball to Dez Bryant that set up the touchdown for Ezekiel Elliott, that was made by Prescott scrambling on 3rd and 12 for 14 and getting the first down. It's his legs that have given the Cowboys life this season, along with the legs of Ezekiel Elliott. So again, Prescott showing the wheels again tonight and then showing the arm as well. But this was not a clean game by any stretch of the imagination by the Cowboys. Again, a bunch of penalties. It started early, first possession of the game, Tyron Smith with a false start penalty. And that was a little bit of foreshadowing for this Cowboys team in this game, as they would have a ton of penalties tonight. There was one defensive drive where you have interception by Anthony Hitchens, hands to the face by Orlando Scandrick that negates that interception. Then after that, you have 2 straight offsides penalties on the Cowboys that gave the Vikings a first down. They struggled in that department. Gavin Escobar with a couple of holding penalties that destroyed Cowboys drives in the second half of this game. So Cowboys penalties were rampant in this game, and it really hurt them on both sides of the football and stopped them from really getting into any kind of flow offensively, especially with the Gavin Escobar holding penalties. But that being said, I thought the Cowboys special teams delivered tonight. And you know how it goes. You got to win 2 out of the 3 phases of the game normally to win in this league, especially when you don't win the turnover battle. Cowboys lost the turnover battle tonight. Had 1 turnover forced, gave up 2 takeaways, yet they still won this game. And that's a sign, again, of a good football team to be able to overcome losing the turnover battle and margin and still win the football game. But the special teams, to me, was the standout group. I thought the Cowboys were better than the Minnesota Vikings on the offensive side of the football, even though not by much, but they were. And then I thought they won the game on special teams. So they won 2 out of the 3 phases of the game, which is generally what you have to do to win in this league. And they dominated. I thought Chris Locke was horrible, or Jeff Locke, excuse me, for the Vikings was horrible tonight. We'll talk about that when we get to the Vikings. But your punter, Chris Jones, was outstanding tonight. The coverage on the Vikings special teams for the Cowboys on their punt returns and everything of that sort was outstanding. It was extraordinary. And they forced a fumble late in the game, which ended up being the game-winning score for the Cowboys, or at least the go-ahead score at the time. They would tack on a field goal that would ultimately be the game-winning score in this football game. But that forced fumble was huge. I thought the special teams of the Cowboys dominated in this game. And because they won offense and special teams, you combine those 2 things, because I've said this a number of times this season when talking about the Vikings. When they win, it's usually because of the defense and special teams in conjunction with one another. Just like when they beat Arizona a couple weeks back, you get the huge kickoff return by Cordero Patterson, but you also get the 101-yard interception return for a touchdown by Xavier Rhodes. So the defense and special teams generally steps up when the Vikings win. They did not do that tonight, and that's why the Cowboys were able to secure the victory. But again, that's what the good teams in this league do. They find ways to win. It's not always going to be pretty. They gave it up on the final drive of the game, but they got the stop on the 2-point conversion, again, with a little controversy there with the hit to the helmet of Sam Bradford. But nonetheless, they still get the W, 17-15, win their 11th game in a row. Cowboys finding ways to win. No catch for Jason Witten in this game, breaks his 84-game streak of catches in consecutive games, but he doesn't care. They won the football game. He recovered the onside kick late, so he still had an impact in this game, believe it or not. It was just weird to see the Cowboys offense struggle because it's been so prolific this season. But again, penalties will do that to you. And this Vikings defense is good. Say what you want about their offense. Their defense is really good, and they proved it again tonight. Speaking of which, let's get to the Vikings in this game. Look, at 6-6 now after this loss, you're going to have to win out to make it to the postseason most likely, and then maybe get some help from some other teams along the way. But you got to take it one game at a time. This was a game that was there for the taking. First of all, I feel bad for the Vikings defense because they played their asses off. They played for Mike Zimmer. Again, Zim not on the sideline. Zimmer had eye surgery, emergency eye surgery, just a day ago, not able to coach the team. And so they went out, they played hard. The defense had opportunities to really do some damage in this game, and that they did. They harassed Dak Prescott. They were able to force a fumble of Prescott that was recovered. Of course, Vikings didn't take full advantage of that turnover, had to settle for a field goal. They were able to force another turnover earlier in the game on Lucky Whitehead hitting him. Zeke Elliott almost turned it over on a fumble. So they were aggressive. The defense did their part in this game. It's a shame that they come up on the short end of the stick, even though they didn't do much wrong. The fumble was huge by Adam Thielen, and that one changed the game. You're up 9-7 at that point in the game. Defense is playing outstanding, and you give up that turnover, and on the first play afterwards, Des Bryant gets into the end zone. I question whether he even got in because he had the football on the outside arm. He steps into the end zone, but I don't know if the football ever came with him. It reminded me of the Patriots and the Jets over the weekend on the 2-point conversion. James White scores, initially ruled good, and a 2-point conversion And then they go back and look at it and they say, wait a minute, you went in the end zone, but the ball never made it. And so they take the 2 points off the scoreboard. That's why the final score ended up 22-17 instead of 24-17. I'm thinking Bryant got in. I'm not sure the football did, but they never went and looked at it. So maybe he did get in. Maybe he didn't. I didn't think he got in. My dad, who is an avid Cowboys fan, thought that Bryant didn't get in either. So there was a little bit of discussion between us as to whether he got in. But obviously, there was no discussion amongst the officials, which is what matters. And he gets in, and that gave them the lead. They would later tack on another field goal after another poor punt by Jeff Locke. Speaking of which, let's get to the special teams of the Vikings. They were horrid in this game. And if you ask me, a team and a unit that has saved them numerous times this season and bailed them out and helped them win games, let them down tonight. That special teams was an atrocity tonight. There was really no space for Cordero Patterson. Great job by punter Chris Jones of the Cowboys to put the football near the sidelines and away from the danger zone, which is Cordell Patterson. And know that he's not a great punt returner. They don't put him back there. Normally that's Marcus Sherrill's department, but you don't want Cordero Patterson touching the football in space. And so they did a really good job of keeping him away from the football first and foremost. And then I thought the coverage unit of the Cowboys was great. I didn't think they blocked well all night for the Vikings. Then you had a muffed a punt by Cordero Patterson late that was recovered by one of the Vikings blockers. So he got lucky there. Then you have, of course, the Adam Thielen fumble that cost this team, that was, to me, the changing and turning point of this game. And I just thought special teams was a hindrance in this game. And then you, of course, got the punting of Jeff Locke, which was just a train wreck. Okay, every single punt, it seemed like, had backwards English on it and spun backwards. And there was one punt that literally came back about 20 yards. One of his punts was a 25-yard net, which is something that you normally have reserved for punts when you punt right around the 45 or 50-yard line midfield, and the punter doesn't want to kick it in the end zone. So he kicks it high and it doesn't go very far, or he boots it into the end zone from the 45 and it's a touchback and it comes out to the 20 and voila, your net of 25. But to kick it from where he was kicking from and have it only go 25 yards net is a shame. And Jeff Locke, who's usually pretty good for this Vikings football team, was absolutely terrible in this game. Probably had one of his worst games as a pro tonight, and it did not help the Vikings in their quest to try to beat the 10-game winning streak Dallas Cowboys, who make it 11 in a row with this win. The late drive by Sam Bradford, I thought he did something that he failed to do all night, and that's use his legs to escape the pocket and create for receivers down the field. Thought he had opportunities to run on numerous occasions tonight. The Cowboys were a little bit more aggressive than they've been all season with the blitzes. I saw Sean Lee and Anthony Hitchens coming a little bit more often than they've come this season, and it opened up a lot of space for Bradford to just vacate the pocket and run, but he refused to do so, took some sacks, took a shot, had to temporarily leave the game right before the half, but did return and finish out. So that was a scary moment for Vikings fans because, again, you don't want any of Sean Hill in the game. We've seen that already in week 1. We know what that movie looks like. You didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game. Almost didn't score one tonight. But that final drive was a thing of beauty. Went right down the field. Cowboys really playing that soft coverage a little bit, kind of trying to keep everything in front of them. But also, Bradford made some plays, rolling outside the pocket, the throw to Thielen right before the 2-minute warning, the throw outside the pocket to Diggs on the other escape of the pocket, almost sort of a bootleg for him there. They made plays on that last drive, and then Jerick McKinnon gets in on the catch for the touchdown. Weren't able to convert the 2-point conversion. You get the penalty first. It drives you back 5 yards. And then, again, the missed no call by the officials. Thornton with a hand to the helmet of Sam Bradford, but the official did not see it. And so because of that, they fall short by 2 points, 17-15. Cowboys get the win. They're now 11-1 and seemingly are in control, because I fully believe that the Giants will lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday, which will then open up that gap a little bit for the Cowboys as they look to clinch up the NFC East. Meanwhile, for the Minnesota Vikings, this is a crushing loss, especially when you had opportunities to win. You may have been able to get away without scoring an offensive touchdown and win this football game because of how well the defense was playing. But the special teams was the bugaboo for the Vikings on this night. And the fumble by Adam Thielen really cost them and gave the Cowboys life when they seemingly were lifeless. They score the touchdown, get another field goal, win this game 17-15. Vikings drop to 6-6 on the season. So let's jump into your comments here as the Cowboys get the win. Andrew Kim says, I think the Cowboys are destined not to lose unless they get blown out, which I don't see happening. That non-call was terrible, but terrible throw by Bradford. Well, the throw was terrible because he got hit in the head. But like I said, even with that penalty, if they get the penalty, it's probably a play from the 2-yard line or so. Don't think they put it at the 1 there. They still got to convert. Who knows if they're going to convert or not? We don't know. But bottom line is it was an egregious no call, but doesn't matter. Don't wait until the final possession to want to score and try to make this thing interesting. Andrew Kim says they could lose within the division, but those are the only games I see them potentially losing in the regular season. If the Cowboys lose again, it's going to be when they rest their starters at the end of the season when nothing's on the line. They've already locked up home field throughout in the NFC, and they've already locked up the NFC East division. That's when they'll lose, and that's when it won't matter. Andrew Kim also says Vikings defense did play a whole lot better today, though. They came to play, just the offense wasn't until the last drive. And that's, I think you can also talk about the special teams in there as well. I thought the special teams really dropped the ball in this game, along with the offense's inability to attack a Cowboys defense that hasn't been great this season, but they played well tonight. Give the Cowboys defense some credit. If not for the penalty, Anthony Hitchens, I thought he played an outstanding game in coverage. Byron Jones almost had a pick on a horrible throw by Jerick McKinnon on a throw pass, on a double pass for him, or not a double pass. It was a halfback pass, excuse me. And I don't know what the hell he was doing there. That needed to be a pass with some air and some trajectory on that pass, and there was none to be had. He threw a bullet right to Byron Jones, and if the impact of the ground doesn't dislodge that football, that's a pick. So the offense was just horrible, as it usually is for the Minnesota Vikings, and that coupled with bad special teams got them in the end. Mindraw says, starting my picks 1-0. Most people pick the Cowboys, so you're not alone there. Ben Glassford says, that non-call changed the outcome of the game. Shaking my head, not even a Vikings fan. It did, but it didn't. Because, again, it's not like that would have guaranteed them a 2-point conversion. They still would have had to convert, but you would have loved to have seen them get an opportunity there from the 2-yard line to have an attempt at getting in the end zone versus just not having the flag being thrown there and saying, okay, got to get the onside kick or you lose. So, yeah, that non-call did change the game. I don't think it changed the outcome necessarily. The play that changed the outcome was the Adam Thielen fumble on the punt return. That changed the outcome of this game. Alan Dilworth says, I live with my team, but the Vikes are done this year. Get a good all-lineman in the draft and pray he doesn't get injured. Let me say this while we're on the subject. I love that new stadium. You can't tell me that those gongs that guy was beating, boom, 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 for the skull chant, you can't tell me you don't want to hit that gong, man. I want to hit that damn gong. That looks fun. Boo, 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 skull, skull. I want to boo, boo. I want to hit that thing. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. The Vikings aren't done yet, but they're going to have to get hot. They got the schedule to get hot, but I tell you this much. That offensive line is abysmal, and with all the injuries, it's going to be a tough sledding down the stretch for this Vikings football team. Izzy Ackerland says, do you think the Vikes are done? I don't think so, because the Skins have 6 wins just like the Vikes. So if we pass them and the Bucks, we make it. Easier said than done. So here's the scenario. You're 6-6 right now. The Redskins have the inside track on everyone chasing after the final wild card spot right now because of that tie. So just think of it like this. The Vikings already have 6 losses. If the Redskins end the season with 6 losses and the Vikings, let's just say they drop one more game and they win the rest of them. So let's say the Vikings finish 9-7. If the Redskins finish 9-6-1, guess what? The Redskins get in. Same with the Bucs. If the Bucs finish the season up 9-7, and they're right now sitting at 6-5, let's just say the Bucs finish up 9-7, and the Redskins finish 9-6-1. The Redskins get in. So that tie is going to be tough to overcome. That's why if you're the Vikings, you want to win 10 games. 10 games gives you the best shot to get in, which that means you're going to have to clean the rest of your slate. You're going to have to win the final 4 games of the season, and then you're going to need help. You're going to need the Redskins to lose 3 games down the stretch. You're going to need the Redskins to lose at least 2 games down the stretch. You're going to need the Buccaneers to lose another 2 games down the stretch. So you're going to need help. And so that's your problem right now if you're the Minnesota Vikings, is that you don't control your own destiny. A win tonight would have allowed you to basically control your own fate, because then you're putting pressure on other teams to have to win. By losing this game, you left the door wide open for other teams to pass you by. And so it's going to be tough for the Vikings. But no, they are not done. They still have a shot. But the inconsistency of this football team this season lends me to believe that they will not make the postseason this year. Captain Spartan 04 says, just saying, how is someone to stop their hand from falling in midair? People do not know how this thing called gravity, what goes up always must come down. Obviously, but don't put your hand on the head of a quarterback. You know how it goes. We've seen guys flagged for much less than that. And so it is what it is. You know, they didn't make the call. Okay, you move on. It's a no call. Again, the fumble by Adam Thielen had more to do with the outcome of this game than the non-call on Thornton on the 2-point conversion. It's really simple for me. Don't fumble on special teams. Maybe you win this football game. Just maybe. We don't know. Hard to say. But guess what? They did fumble, and they did lose this game. So don't put yourself, you know my mantra, you know my motto, don't put yourself in a position where you allow the officials to dictate the outcome of the game. That fumble by Thielen allowed the officials call at the end to come into play. Whereas if you don't fumble that football, I don't know if the Cowboys have it in them in this particular game to drive the football the length of the field on the Vikings defense and get in to the end zone. So again, don't put yourself in that position. Mondros says, really liked what I saw from Bradford today when he scrambled. Don't know why he doesn't do it more often. He's not trained mentally to run and vacate the pocket. It's just not in his game. It's not in his DNA. He only does it when it is blatantly obvious to the point where you're like, hey, man, you don't really have any other option. You got to run right now. If you allow him to take a sack before he runs, he'll take a sack before he runs. There were times for him to escape the A gaps in this game, escape the B gap, and he just refused to run. There was one play I can remember in the first half. Sean Lee comes on the blitz, and Jerick McKinnon does a wonderful job of picking him up. TJ Clemmons actually didn't get beat on this particular play, and he's got nothing but space and opportunity to vacate the A gap, and he refuses to run, and he checks it down to like Matt Asiata on like 3rd and 8 for no gain, and they punt. And I'm like, really, bro? That's what you're going to do? When you got all this space and opportunity to pick up like 15 with nobody over the middle of the field because they blitzed, and you're going to dump it down? That's a chump move, man. He said, well, I'm a chump. What you expect from me? I said, okay, whatever. Cool. Captain Spartan 04 says, I hate when I lose my spot. Vikings would be 9-3-1, I think, with Teddy and AP and Norv, of course. I remember the discussion I had earlier in the season when I said, man, I don't know, Teddy may not get his job back. Teddy's getting his job back. That job is waiting for him. If he's healthy, it's his show to run in Minnesota. They really miss him this year because in this particular game, a game like this, his legs would have been the difference in the outcome of this game, I think. And maybe the Cowboys play it differently if Teddy Bridgewater is the quarterback. Maybe they don't come with as many pressures because the Cowboys normally don't blitz. And they blitzed in this game, and I think they blitzed because they knew Sam Bradford would not vacate the pocket if they did come after him. So they knew they weren't going to be penalized for blitzing, and if they didn't hit home, they weren't going to give up a big run because Sam Bradford wasn't going to use his legs to escape. Captain Spartan 04 says, worst offensive line, Vikings or Seahawks? Vikings by far. Seahawks, they piss me off because they do patchwork things there, and they try to take guys who haven't played the offensive line in years or ever and put them in the game at left tackle, a premier position. But they do have some guys up front that are pretty good. Justin Britt at center, pretty good. They spent a first-round pick on Jermaine Ifedi at left or right guard. He's playing solid football for them. So they do have some stuff. It's just not good enough. But for the Vikings, they just got a bunch of guys out there because of all the injuries. It's a lot worse off there than it is in Seattle, in my estimation. So I'd go with the Vikings there, having the worst offensive line. All right. Enrique Valencia says, TJ Clemens is so bad. His feet are a mess. You know what? You know the thing? Me and my dad were sitting talking, watching TJ Clemens, and I was telling him, TJ Clemens is such an athlete. Coming out of Pitt, I just said, this guy's got the potential to be a home run left tackle in this league. But it's not even his feet that really make me upset. It's the fact that he doesn't move them that pisses me off, because I know this guy is an athlete. He's a heavy-legged waistbender and his legs aren't even heavy. That's the thing. He refuses to move his feet. So he bends at the waist, he lunges, and he gets off balance, and he gets beat consistently. He's good enough. His athleticism is good enough. Everything says he's supposed to be able to move his feet laterally and stay in front of guys, and yet he doesn't. It is so frustrating because I know he has the capability to do it. He just refuses to do so, and then he gets into that chokehold technique where he tries to grab a guy from getting around the edge, and they beat him all the time. He's got poor hand usage. His punch is horrible. Guys are swatting his hands down. He doesn't move his feet well enough, and I know he can, and then he lunges, and he loses, and his balance is horrible. He's just, he's a mess right now. It's a shame. I think he's probably better off being a guard when it's all said and done. Enrique Valencia says, I'm so disappointed in Treadwell. I was so high on him. He looks lost out there. Again, and you love to do this, Enrique. Don't judge the man on his rookie season. Everybody matures at a different rate. You do this with your own receiver, the kid out of Miami that you always kill. He's a young guy. These guys need time. That's why Treadwell hasn't been on the field. He's been struggling. Give him time. You can be disappointed in what you saw. That's fine, but don't write the guy off because he didn't run a comeback on 3rd and 5 correctly and ran too far and then come back to the ball. Yes, he's a rookie. These things happen to them, especially when they don't get it right away. And obviously Treadwell hasn't gotten it right away. So don't be so fast to write these guys off just because they're not at the same rate of some of these other rookies. He's not Michael Thomas. He's not Sterling Shepard. He's not one of these guys that has come in, picked it up immediately, and has been helping his team all year. He's a guy that's struggling. Everybody gets it at a different rate. Same thing with Dorsett out there in Indy. Give these guys some time. Captain Spartan 04. Lou, you okay? You might need some speech. Your speech is a little messed up, LOL. I always can use some more sleep, man. I'm all over the place tonight. Andrew Kim says, yeah, Treadwell wasn't my number 1 receiver out of the draft, but I thought he was a good fit in Minnesota, and he ultimately might be. I mean, who's to say he won't be? He's just not acclimating himself right away. Again, doesn't happen. Look at Cordero Patterson tonight, and look at him all season long. How long did it take Cordero Patterson to get on the field as a receiver? He looks good as a receiver this season. Took him his entire rookie contract. Okay, he'll be a free agent in the offseason. It took him to his final year of his rookie deal to finally start getting it at the receiver position. It does that for some players. Sometimes the light bulb doesn't go on for year 4 or 5. Some guys, they come in and they get it immediately. For some guys, it doesn't happen till year 2 or year 3, or they have to move to another team and they play much better with their second stint and on their second contract than their rookie contract. You can't take one guy and extrapolate all the other rookies you've seen and say he's supposed to be here because this guy or that guy is at this point in their career and this player isn't, so this guy sucks. Can't do that. Pet peeve of mine. Ben Glassford says, how do you think the Cowboys' final 4 games pan out? So let's see. Have the Giants next week. The final game of the season is Philadelphia. They have Tampa Bay somewhere in that mix. And I can't think of who the other game is. But let's just look at this thing for a second. They got the Giants. I don't know what's going to happen there because it's NFC East, family business. All bets are off. Don't know what's going to happen. Whether they're probably going to beat the Giants, most likely. They have no problems going into New York and winning. They do it all the time. But I don't know what's going to happen there. I can tell you this. By the time they get to Week 17 and that Philadelphia Eagles game on the road, they won't need it. It won't matter. They'll already have clinched home field throughout the NFC, and they will have already clinched the NFC East division. So I don't know what happens and transpires in the next 4 games, but I can tell you this much. They would have already sewn up the 2 most important things in their regular season, and that's home field throughout in the NFC, the number 1 seed, and, of course, the NFC East division. So I don't know how it'll actually shake out with wins and losses, but all you need to know is they're going to win the NFC East, and they're going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC conference. And whether that's 2 wins, 2 losses, 3 wins, 1 loss, 4 wins, no losses, I can't tell you that. But I'm looking at the Cowboys, and I see 13-3. 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses, because they're going to wrap this thing up shortly. I think a win next week versus the Giants will lock up the NFC East, because at that point, they would have the Giants are going to lose this week. I'm convinced. If the Giants win, then no, you're not locking up the NFC East quite yet. But that'll be a shocker to me if the Giants beat the Steelers this weekend. That will dictate what happens with the Cowboys in terms of, are they able to rest some guys down the stretch? Because they're going to win against Tampa Bay, and they're going to win. And there's another game in there, probably not a team that they're concerned about. I don't think it might be Detroit. That's who it is. It's Detroit. So that's a winnable game. I think that's at home as well. So we'll see what happens. All right. What's going on, Reby? I haven't heard from Reby in quite some time. What's going on, girl? LOL, that does look like fun. I want to hit it too. How are you doing, Lou? I'm doing good, man. I should be asking you how you are doing. It's been a while since we've talked. Yes, those gongs, man, I'm telling you. That looked like some fun. I definitely would love to hit those things. Francisco Walter says, what do you think about the Cowboys overall? I mean, I've already said it on numerous occasions that this Cowboys team is really good. The one thing I worry about come playoff time is the defense, 1, and 2, the lack of experience. Because football is one of those sports where you need experience come playoff time. In certain sports, you don't need experience. Baseball, you don't have to have experience to go in and win games and win the World Series. In basketball, generally you need experience. You need those tough series. You need to have been through 1 or 2 of those to know how to react when you're down 2-1 or down 3-1, to know that it's not over and all you need to do is get 1 and get it back home, or whatever the case may be. You go through those growing pains, it teaches you something, and then you're able to apply that down the road, and it helps you win moving forward. With the Cowboys, they don't have anything to lean on right now because they've never been in this spot before. These guys are young. They don't know any better, so maybe that's a good thing that they don't know any better, so they don't know about the magnitude of these games and the stage and how big it is and how bright the lights are come postseason time. But then again, it may affect some of these guys. I don't know. We'll see. But I do worry about the lack of experience, and I do also worry about the defense, which I thought actually played well tonight. But then again, you're playing against one of the worst offenses in the league in the Minnesota Vikings, so take it with a grain of salt. When you've played against good offenses like the Steelers, like the Redskins, you've struggled. And so I think that's why everyone is so concerned about this Cowboys defense. But overall, the offense is so good. The running game is so good. The offensive line is so good. Dak Prescott is so good. Des Bryant is so good. Cole Beasley is so good. Jason Witten is so good that this team is scary come the playoffs because the offense is so good. Andrew Kim says, man, lots of people watching today. Saw 103 people at one point. That's great. Look, I'm going to tell you one thing about Cowboys fans. When they're winning, they show up. Love those guys for that. When they're winning, they show up. So I know if they win, they'll be here. No doubt about it, man. So that's probably what has a lot to do with all those people showing up. But it's all good, man. It's fun when your team's winning. I can tell you from experience, it's fun when your team is winning. It changes the game big time. It's so much fun. You soak it all up. You want to watch every post-game show, anything you can get. And I'm going to tell you right now, you turn on your television set to any channel that does sports. I don't give a damn what it is. ESPN, NFL Network. I don't care what it is. They're talking Cowboys football, man. It's exciting. When you win 11 in a row, they're talking Cowboys football everywhere you go. And so it was the same thing with the Panthers last season. When you're winning like this, and it's on a much bigger scale because it's the Cowboys. It's America's team. So it's on a little bit bigger of a scale. It's fun to watch. As an NFC East dude myself, I'm watching from afar and admiring what the Cowboys are doing. And I'm jealous. I'm envious because I wish it was my Redskins doing this and not the Cowboys. But it is the Cowboys. And I love seeing NFC East teams do well, represent the division. But I also, at the same time, I'm like, hey, don't take this too far now and try to go win yourself a Super Bowl. That'll really piss me off. But also, in the same breath, I'd love nothing more than to get a shot at the Cowboys again in the playoffs. So this is fun for me. I just like watching. I've said this before. Every league needs a villain. The NFL has two. The Cowboys and the Patriots. If you don't like the Cowboys, then you most likely don't. But see, the Patriots are the ultimate villain in the NFL because either you are a Patriots fan or you hate the New England Patriots. There's no in between. And because of that, the league is always better when the bad guys are good. Because then it gives everybody a reason to watch and hate. There's nothing worse than when there are teams that are playing that doesn't give a rise out of the people that are watching. When you're kind of meh on the teams that are playing and you don't care one way or another, you're kind of just jaded by the whole situation, then it's not fun. Every time the Cowboys play in a game, the ratings are going to be high. You know why? Because either you're rooting for the Cowboys or you're rooting against the Cowboys, but you're watching either way. So that's the same thing, same premise with ESPN and Skip Bayless when he was there and now on Fox 1 and the whole First Take and Stephen A. Smith and all that stuff that I don't watch. That's the premise behind it. Either you love them or you hate them, but you still watch. And they know that. That's why they create that content. That's why they do the things that they do, because they want some kind of reaction on you. They want you to either love them or hate them. Either way, you're going to come and tune in and watch because you want to hear what they have to say. And so that's why the Cowboys being so good right now is so good for the league. And it's fun to watch. I'm not going to lie to you. I really am enjoying watching the Cowboys do what it is they're doing this season. It's a lot of fun, especially when you see the young boys getting off, because it gives everybody else hope that, hey, I can draft a quarterback, or I can draft a running back, or I can draft a receiver that can come in and change the game. And maybe next year I can be the Dallas Cowboys. That's why this league is so good. It's built off of parity. One year you can be the Cowboys 4-12. The next year you can be on an 11-game winning streak and be 11-1 going into week number 14. That's why this league is so successful. Ben Glassford says, Giants, Bucks, Lions, Eagles are their last 4 games. So, yeah, I had the right 4. I didn't know the order. So, I don't know what's going to happen against the Giants. That's family business. All bets are off when 2 family members are squaring off. But they're going to probably beat the Bucks, even though the last 2 weeks the Bucks have been giant killers and slayers. So, who knows what that's going to bring. But they're at home for the Lions. I do know that. And then they're on the road for the Eagles. I mean, again, who knows what those games are actually going to mean by the time they get there. If they beat the Giants and the Bucks and they're 13-1, they've got the NFC East locked up. They've got the NFC number 1 playoff spot locked up. They don't even need the Lions or the Eagles game. Who knows? They rest their starters those final 2 games. They lose both of them. Who cares? You're 13-3 and you got everything that you want and you got your health going into the postseason. So we'll see what happens. All right. Going down the list. Jaleel says, I think the Vikes have a chance to go 10-6. That schedule is soft as F. I told you, it's really soft. It's Jags, it's Bears. I think they got one more with the Packers final week of the season, if I'm not mistaken. That's Packers again. But look, who the hell are the Packers? We don't know. They won on Monday. That's great, but we don't know who the Packers are. But yes, that's a cupcake soft schedule as far as I'm concerned. But again, they're so inconsistent. Who's to say that they're able to win the games that they're supposed to win? We'll see what happens with the Vikings moving forward. First name, last name says, when is Louie T going to talk draft? I don't talk draft until after the season is done, and that includes the Super Bowl. So it'll be a little while because I don't mix the two together. I don't mix the college with the NFL while the NFL is still going on. The only time I do that is on Louie T Live, but that's not particularly breaking down players that will be entering the draft. That's just more about college football in general and the teams. So you won't hear me talking about the draft until after. But once I dive in, I go in hard. So you stay tuned for that. All right. Moving right along, Mind Draw says, sorry for bringing the Lions, LOL. But come on, everyone is saying that the Lions offense is getting weak. We scored 16 on the Vikes and 17 on the Cowboys. Come on, give us a break. Your offense hasn't been good, but it doesn't matter. Look, don't let that stuff get to you, man. You're winning games, okay? You're winning games. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. It doesn't have to be. This was not pretty. Nothing about tonight's game was cute for the Dallas Cowboys. But you know what was pretty? You know what was cute? That W. Damn, every time you hang up one of them things, boy, is that pretty, man. I could look at that all night long. All night long, all night. Whoa. Could look at a W all night long. I don't give a damn if it's 16 points, 15, 17. If it's a W, sign me up. So don't worry about it as long as you're winning games. You know what that means also? That your defense is playing good. If 17 is enough to win, if 16 is enough to win, if 19 is enough to win, guess who's playing their ass off? Your defense. So don't worry about all of that. Just win football games. All right, moving right along. Mind Draw says, which team in the AFC has that type of team that can beat the Cowboys? There are a number of teams that can beat the Cowboys in the AFC, but again, we don't need to talk about AFC teams beating the Cowboys because they got to make it out of the NFC first. So the AFC has their own set of problems. They got a number of things going on over there. Who are the Raiders? Are you sure that the Raiders are a contender or not? Patriots lose Gronk for the rest of the season, so what the hell does that mean for them? Are the Steelers coming or not? Who are the Baltimore Ravens? Can they score any damn points, or are they just going to kick field goals and field goal us to death? Are the Dolphins for real? There's so many storylines. What about the Chiefs? Are the Denver Broncos even going to make the playoffs? There's so many storylines in the AFC, none of which are who can beat the Dallas Cowboys. None of those storylines exist right now. The only thing you worry about right now with the Cowboys is on the NFC side of the bracket, because it doesn't matter what's going on the AFC side. If they don't make it out, we've seen this Cowboys team go 13-3 before, 12-4, get to the second round of playoffs, get a first round bye, and as soon as they come off the bye, the Giants beat them and go win the Super Bowl. We've seen this before. This looks a lot different, though, because of the way the quarterback and the running back are playing. But we've seen this movie before with the Cowboys, so we know they can be beaten. So let's not talk about the AFC and what team in the AFC could beat them. Let's stick to the NFC right now, because right now that's all that matters for this Cowboys football team. All right. And the last comment that I have here is by Ben Glassford, and he says, do you think the Finns are actually a playoff caliber team or just really hot team that will crumble in the end? Hard to say, because I've watched this Dolphins team do this before, and then it hasn't been to this extent, I will say, but I've seen them play good football before, and then down the stretch, lose at Buffalo, lose to the Jets, and don't get it done when it matters most. But they're playing a different caliber of football right now. It'll be anxious. This game will tell me a lot. Their game in Week 13 on the road versus the Ravens will tell me all I need to know about this Miami Dolphins team. If they find a way to win, and it doesn't have to be pretty, Tannehill could go out and throw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6, and if they still find a way to win the game, that tells me all I need to know about this Dolphins football team. If they go to Baltimore, and like I said before, they go in there, they struggle, Tannehill struggles, Jay Ajayi, which I think he's going to struggle because that Ravens defense is tough and they stop the run. If he struggles and they put the game on Tannehill's shoulders and he doesn't respond and they lose this game 19-13, then that will tell me all I need to know about the Dolphins and that they're not serious about making a playoff push. But if they win this game on the road against a tough-minded Ravens football team that plays defense but struggles to score, then that'll tell me these boys are for real. They're not going away, and they're going to end up with one of those spots in the AFC wild card. In that playoff race out there. So that'll be something to watch this week. That's one of those intriguing games that the playoff implications written all over it, for sure. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this breakdown of the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. What'd you guys think of those color rushes? I thought the Vikings were okay. They didn't blow me away. The Cowboys, those white on whites are always clean when they wear them. Normally they wear them on Thanksgiving. They didn't wear them this year, but those are always clean. I thought the Vikings were okay. I didn't have a problem with them. They look nice. But bottom line, Cowboys got it done, man. They're good. For all you Cowboys haters out there, recognize, man. Recognize game right now. Game recognized game, and the Cowboys are looking damn familiar right now, man. Give these boys some credit. They're good. Okay? 11 in a row, that's not an accident. That's not a fluke. Winning is a skill. Cowboys got that down pat right now. 11 in a row. 11-1 with the 17-15 victory over the Minnesota Vikings, who dropped this game, now go to 6-6, and they're probably going to have to run the table to get in the playoffs, and they need help as well. So we'll see what happens with both of these teams moving forward. For the Cowboys, they get a nice little break now, 10 days until their next game. Same for the Vikings. We'll see what happens with these teams moving forward. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network on Thursday Night Football Overtime. Cowboys victorious again, 11 straight with the 17-15 victory over the Minnesota Vikings, who dropped to 6-6 on the season. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you guys on Sunday. Have a great night. Thanks for joining me again.
Broncos won the Super Bowl when Peyton Manning retired. 49ers won 5 games and Tom Sula got fired. RG's in Cleveland and my Rams hit the West Coast. Be sleepless in Seattle cause that 12-man ain't beast mode. Oh yeah, I knew it was something I forgot to mention. Yeah, old Tom Brady about to get that suspension. Yeah, I know the Pats fans probably think that's whack. Yeah, but at the end of the day, your balls was flat. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the offseason, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off. Shout out your defense, they tissue cause they soft. Catch 'em while they sleeping, we gon' sneak in the playoff.